You walk into a room. Within 3 seconds, every person inside has already decided where you stand in the hierarchy. They didn't hear you speak. They didn't see your resume. They didn't ask your name. And yet, the verdict is already written. Now ask yourself the question almost no one is brave enough to ask. What exactly did they read, and why did it happen so fast? Most men spend their entire lives trying to control how they are perceived, never realizing that perception is decided long before words are exchanged. They adjust their clothes, rehearse their lines, force their smiles, and still walk out of every room feeling invisible. They blame the room, they blame the people, they blame the timing. But the truth is colder than that. The truth is that presence is a frequency, and most men are broadcasting on a channel the world has already learned to ignore. Pause for a second. Think of the last time you walked into a place full of strangers. Did the room shift toward you, or did you shift toward the room? That single question contains the entire diagnosis of your social position in life. And by the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly how to flip that dynamic permanently. In my last breakdown on this channel, The Architecture of Silence, Mastering the Sovereign Mind, we dissected the power of absence. We explored how silence, restraint, and disappearance build a psychological fortress that other men cannot penetrate. That was the foundation. That was the unseen layer. But silence is only half the weapon. The other half is what happens the moment you finally choose to walk through the door. Because the sovereign mind does not hide forever. Eventually, it must enter the world. And when it does, the world must feel it. This is the science of unshakable presence. This is the architecture of walking through the noise without ever being moved by it. Here's where most men collapse before they even begin. People do not respond to what you say. They respond to what you are emitting before you say anything at all. The human brain processes presence in milliseconds, long before logic, language, or social politeness ever activates. By the time someone consciously decides whether they like you, respect you, or pay attention to you, their nervous system has already filed the verdict. This is the brutal truth that separates the sovereign from the subordinate. You are not being judged by your words. You are being judged by the energy of your existence. And most men walk into rooms broadcasting one thing: need. The silent radio signal of a man who wants to be seen, included, validated, approved of. That signal is detected instantly, and it is dismissed instantly. The world does not gravitate toward the man who needs the room. The world bends toward the man the room needs. We are not going to talk about posture tricks. We are not going to discuss eye contact hacks. Those are the props of insecure men trying to imitate something they have never internalized. We are going to dissect the actual psychological architecture of unshakable presence, the kind of presence that does not require effort because it has been built into the bones of your identity. Stay with me, because what comes next is the part almost no one teaches. Point 1. The psychology of the unmoved center. The first and most catastrophic mistake men make when trying to build presence is that they try to project outward. They push their voice, they push their opinions, they push their gestures. They believe presence is an act of expansion, a transmission outward into the audience. This is exactly backwards. Real presence is not projected, it is anchored. The man with true presence does not push energy outward. He pulls the room inward. He becomes a gravitational center, and the surrounding chaos bends around him. Not because he demanded it, but because he refused to bend toward it. There's a principle in physics called the principle of least action. A system in nature will always move along the path that requires the least energy. Human social systems behave identically. When a room contains many people performing, talking, and competing for attention, the collective psychological field becomes turbulent. But the moment a single individual enters that room with absolute internal stillness, the entire system begins to reorganize around him. Why? Because the human nervous system is constantly scanning for stability. In a room full of motion, the still point becomes the most magnetic object in the environment.
Eyes drift toward it. Conversations slowly reorient toward it. The unconscious of every person in the room begins asking the same primal question. Who is that? And why are they not moving like the rest of us? This is the unmoved center. He is not performing. He is not seeking. He is not reacting. He is simply present. And his presence creates a psychological vacuum that the room rushes to fill. Carl Jung wrote that the brightest light casts the deepest shadow, but he understood something more dangerous. He understood that the man who has integrated his shadow no longer needs to project it outward. He carries his weight internally. His presence is dense because his self-concept no longer depends on the reflections of others. Let me put this simply. When you stop needing the room to confirm you exist, the room becomes desperate to confirm that you have noticed it. To build the unmoved center, begin with one practice. Every time you feel the urge to react, to laugh too quickly at a weak joke, to nod too eagerly at someone's statement, to fill an awkward silence with nervous chatter, catch yourself and freeze. Let the moment pass. Let the silence sit. Let the joke land without your validation. The discomfort you feel in those moments is the sound of your old self dying. That discomfort is the cost of admission to a different psychological tier. Most men cannot pay it. You will. Take a breath, because what's coming next is where the hierarchy flips. Point 2. The doctrine of weighted speech. The second pillar of unshakable presence is the way you handle words. Most men treat words as currency they can spend infinitely. They talk to fill silence, they talk to seem intelligent, they talk to avoid the discomfort of being unread. They release sentences into the world the way a leaking faucet releases water, constantly, mindlessly, and without value. By the time they finish speaking, no one is listening, because they have trained the audience that their words mean nothing. Words that are abundant are words that are worthless. The sovereign understands that language is a finite weapon, not an unlimited resource. Every sentence you release into a room either increases or decreases your psychological weight. There is no neutral utterance. When you speak too much, you reveal too much. You expose the mechanics of your thought. You hand the audience the blueprint of your reasoning. And the moment they understand you, they stop being curious about you. Mystery is not silence. Mystery is the deliberate withholding of unnecessary information. There is a concept in cognitive psychology called the scarcity heuristic. The human brain assigns higher value to anything it perceives as rare. Apply this to your words. When you flood a room with your opinions, your jokes, and your reactions, you are mass-producing your own currency. You are inflating yourself into worthlessness. But when you sit in the center of a conversation and contribute one carefully placed sentence every 15 minutes, every word you release becomes a relic. People will lean forward. They will repeat your phrases later. They will quote you to others, even when they don't fully understand what you meant. This is the part no one teaches. You do not speak to be heard. You speak to land. Every sentence must function like a stone dropped into still water. Deliberate, heavy, and capable of sending ripples across the entire room.
To practice this, kill your reflex to respond. When someone asks you a question, do not immediately answer. Pause. Let the silence become uncomfortable. Watch their eyes. Watch them begin to wonder if you heard them, if you were judging them, if their question was even worth asking. Only when the tension reaches a peak do you finally speak. Slowly, deliberately, with the cadence of a man who has nothing to prove. The pause is not an accident. The pause is the weapon. While everyone else is bleeding language into the air, the sovereign sits with his words coiled like ammunition, releasing them only when the impact is guaranteed. And in that economy of restraint, every sentence he speaks becomes a verdict. Now slow down, because the next pillar is the one that breaks most men. Point 3, the principle of immune indifference. There is a moment in every social environment when the test arrives. It might come as a sarcastic comment from a peer trying to deflate your status. It might come as a backhanded compliment designed to plant a seed of doubt. It might come as an outright provocation, an insult, or a challenge meant to force you into a defensive posture. These moments are not random. They are unconscious psychological probes that humans use to map the hierarchy of any environment. Every time someone tests you, they are asking the same silent question. Can I move you? If they can move you, you are below them. If they cannot move you, the dynamic shifts permanently, and they begin to orbit you instead. Most men fail this test catastrophically. They get defensive, they explain themselves, they counterattack, they try to win the exchange. And in doing so, they reveal the most damaging truth about themselves. The sovereign does not get moved. Not because he is suppressing his reactions, because he has cultivated a psychological state I call immune indifference. It is the trained, unshakable response of a man who has internalized one truth. Other people's opinions of him are not data about him. They are data about them. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events, and that realizing this is where strength is found.
But he was articulating something deeper than emotional regulation. He was describing a psychological firewall. The sovereign builds a wall between his self-concept and the external world, so that when an attack comes, verbal, social, emotional, strategic, it does not penetrate. It hits the wall, slides off, and dies in the air. The attacker is left holding their weapon, confused, embarrassed, and suddenly aware that their best ammunition did nothing. To build immune indifference, train yourself to receive provocations the way an ocean receives a thrown stone. The ocean does not flinch, the ocean does not retaliate. The stone disappears into the depths, and the surface remains undisturbed. When someone tests you, do not answer immediately. Do not even acknowledge the emotional content of their attack. Look at them with the calm, mildly curious detachment of someone observing an interesting moment. Then either say nothing or respond with a single sentence so disconnected from their emotional frequency that they realize their attempt has failed entirely. They will not test you again. They will retreat. And every other person in the room who witnessed that exchange will recalibrate their entire perception of you in real time. Here is the part most men misunderstand. Immune indifference is not coldness. Coldness is still a reaction. Coldness still requires the existence of a threat. Immune indifference is something rarer. It is the genuine inability to register certain inputs as threats in the first place. When you reach that state, attacks no longer feel like attacks. They feel like background noise. And the people around you will sense on a primal level that you are operating from a higher altitude than they are. Quick reset, because we just covered 3 internal pillars. Now we step into the body. And this is where most men accidentally undo everything they've built. Point 4, cultivation of physical gravity. True presence is never purely mental. The body is the carrier of the signal. No matter how composed your mind is, if your physical vehicle is leaking anxiety, the room will read it instantly.
Human beings are biological lie detectors. They sense the smallest tremor in your hand, the smallest hesitation in your gait, the smallest break in your voice. Most men walk into rooms with bodies that betray them. Their feet move too quickly, their hands flutter, their eyes dart. Their chests are caved, their breath is shallow. Their entire physical presentation broadcasts the one word that destroys all authority: uncertainty. The sovereign moves differently. He moves with what I call physical gravity. His pace is unhurried, not theatrically slow,
but steady, like a man who knows the room cannot start without him. His hands rest. They do not gesture wildly. His chest is open, but not aggressively puffed. His breath is deep and silent. His eyes do not scan the room searching for friendly faces. His eyes settle where they choose to settle, with the quiet confidence of a man who is not looking for permission. Let me give you a relatable picture. Think about the difference between a junior employee walking into a meeting and a senior executive walking into the same meeting. The junior arrives early, sits straight, fidgets with his pen, smiles too much, agrees too quickly. The senior arrives last, sits slowly, says little, and somehow controls the entire conversation without raising his voice. The difference is not rank. The difference is gravity. This physical gravity is built through deliberate practice. Most men have spent decades unconsciously training their bodies to perform anxiety. They have rehearsed nervous gestures so often that those gestures now feel natural. To rebuild the body, identify the leaks. Watch yourself in mirrors. Watch yourself in recordings. Notice every twitch. Notice how often you touch your face, your hair, your phone. Notice how often you nod when you do not need to nod.
Notice how often you fill silence with verbal filler, the ums, the ahs, the rights, the you knows. Each of these is a leak. Each one is your body announcing to the world that you need reassurance. Once you identify the leaks, seal them one by one. Walk slower. Breathe deeper. Eliminate the small comfort gestures. Sit completely still during conversations. Let pauses exist without rushing to fill them. There is a reason elite professionals, surgeons, pilots, high-level operators all share one quality: economy of motion. They have learned that wasted motion is wasted authority. Adopt the same standard. Move only when movement serves a purpose. Speak only when speech serves a purpose. When your body stops broadcasting noise, it begins broadcasting signal. And that signal is the silent transmission of a man who is fundamentally at peace inside his own skin. There is nothing more rare. There is nothing more magnetic. And there is nothing the world recognizes faster than a man whose body has stopped apologizing for taking up space. One final layer. And honestly, this is the one that decides everything.
Point 5. The sovereignty of the inner narrative. We have reached the foundational layer. Without this, everything else is performance. With it, everything else becomes inevitable. Every human being walks through life telling themselves a story about who they are. This internal narrative runs constantly, beneath every interaction, every decision, every emotion. Most men do not author their own narrative. They inherit it. Their story was written by their parents, their teachers, their peers, their failures, their rejections, and the random sequence of events that happened to land in their lives. They walk through the world reading from a script they did not write, performing a character they did not design, and wondering why their lives feel like something happening to them rather than something directed by them. The sovereign has done what most men will never do. He has fired the previous author and seized control of the pen. The inner narrative determines everything. It determines how you walk into a room, because your body always reflects the story your mind is telling. It determines how you speak, because your words are the surface expression of your self-concept. It determines how you handle provocations, because attacks only land when they align with a story you secretly believe about yourself. A man who has rewritten his inner narrative becomes psychologically unrecognizable to those who knew his old version. Same hardware, different operating system. To rewrite your narrative, audit it. Spend time alone in genuine silence and ask yourself the questions most men spend their entire lives avoiding. What story am I telling myself about who I am? Where did that story come from?
Did I choose it? Or was it installed in me by people who had no right to author my identity?
What chapters am I still reading from out of habit, even though they no longer serve me? This is brutal psychological work. Most men will not do it because it requires confronting the fact that much of who they think they are is residual programming from environments they have long since outgrown. But on the other side of that confrontation lies the only real freedom available to a human being: the freedom to become the author of yourself. The sovereign decides who he is and then refuses to deviate from that decision regardless of external feedback. If the world tells him he is too quiet, he does not become louder. If the world tells him he is too intense, he does not become softer. He absorbs the feedback as data, evaluates it, and discards what does not align with the man he has decided to become. This is not stubbornness. This is not arrogance. This is the basic precondition of self-ownership. A man who can be edited by the opinions of others is a man who has no real self. He is a mirror, reflecting whoever happens to be standing in front of him in the moment. When your inner narrative becomes sovereign, your presence becomes inevitable. You stop walking into rooms hoping to be received well. You start walking into rooms knowing the reception is irrelevant. You stop asking the world to confirm your identity. You start announcing your identity through your existence and letting the world adjust accordingly. And the strange, almost miraculous thing that happens is this: the world adjusts. The complete architecture. Look at what we have built. The Unmoved Center, where you become the still point in a turbulent room.
Weighted speech, where every word you release lands with the impact of a verdict. Immune indifference, where attacks slide off you and die in the air. Physical gravity, where your body stops leaking anxiety and starts broadcasting steadiness. And beneath all of it, the sovereignty of the inner narrative, where you have become the author of your own identity and refuse to let the world rewrite you. This is not a costume you put on before walking into a room. This is a structural transformation that takes months, sometimes years, of disciplined self-correction. Most men will never undertake it. They will watch a video like this, feel a brief flicker of recognition, and then return tomorrow to the same patterns of over-explanation, overreaction, and over-accommodation that have kept them invisible their entire lives. You must decide which man you are going to be. Do you want to be comfortable, easily understood, and instantly forgettable? Or do you want to be unshakable, undecodable, and impossible to ignore? You cannot have both. Begin today. The next time you walk into a room, do not scan it for friendly faces. Walk in slowly, breathe deeply, and let the room come to you. The next time someone tests you, do not defend yourself. Look at them with calm curiosity and let your silence do the work. The next time you feel the urge to fill an awkward pause with nervous chatter, bite your tongue and let the silence stretch. The next time someone tries to edit your identity with their opinion of you, smile, nod once, and continue being exactly who you decided to be. Each of these small acts will feel unnatural at first. They will feel like resistance. But repetition rewires the nervous system. The forced becomes the familiar. The familiar becomes the natural. And one day, you will walk into a room of loud, performing, anxious people, and you will feel nothing but a cold, brilliant clarity. You will see them scrambling for attention. You will see the invisible threads of their need pulling at every word they speak. And you will realize that you are no longer one of them. You are the unmoved center they are unconsciously orbiting. You are the architect of the room. Final word from VoidentPsy. In the last transmission, The Architecture of Silence, Mastering the Sovereign Mind, we built the inner fortress. Today, in the science of unshakable presence, we built the outer walls. Together, these two form the foundation of everything this channel stands for. Because at VoidentPsy, the mission is simple and uncompromising. We are not here to teach you how to fit in. We are here for one purpose only, to help you build the kind of aura, the kind of presence, and the kind of inner sovereignty that allows you to live life on your own terms. If this hit something inside you, if even one sentence in this video made you stop and breathe differently, then you are already different from most who clicked on this video. Most will close this tab and forget everything in 10 minutes. You won't, because you understood it. The chains are off. The room is waiting. Now walk through the noise and let nothing move you again.